Are you pregnant and getting impatient to meet your baby soon? If so, then stick around because in this video, we are going to chat about ways to encourage labor to get started or to induce labor naturally from home. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to my channel. And if we haven't met yet, my name is Eve. I am a nurse, a doula, and a Catholic mama to two sweet babies who is super passionate about helping other women prepare for God-centered natural birth experiences. Like I stated in the intro, in today's video, we are going to talk about ways that you can naturally encourage labor to get started on your own from home without any medical intervention. But before we start talking, I kind of want to have a little bit of a heart-to-heart with you guys because I know that when I was pregnant for the first time, I researched about how to encourage my labor to start, how to induce labor on my own until the cows came home. I literally spent so much time just trying to figure out how it is I could kick my body into gear and make it go time when it wasn't go time yet. I was past my due date and so anxious for labor to start, and I swore I would do anything that it took. But I want to remind you guys that a due date is really just a guess date, and every baby is going to be different as far as their timing for when they're ready to be born. I just want you to remember that your body is smart and knows what it's doing, and anywhere between 38 and 42 weeks is a very normal range for you to go into labor. So I don't even want you to start thinking about being past due until you're approaching that 42-week mark, because really your due date is just your 40-week mark of pregnancy. You're not actually overdue at that point at all. Another point that I want to make before I get into the content is just to encourage you guys to really pray through this before you consider kicking your labor into gear at home, especially with some of the more intense methods that you could use. Because even though it might seem harmless, trying to induce your own labor from home can, I'm not saying it will in your case, you just really need to search your own heart and pray through it, but it can take away some of your trust in the labor process and your trust in God and His timing. So I just want to point that out before we get started and take those things with a grain of salt. But I do want to get into the content. If you are really feeling like it's go time or you have some other reason that you want to kick labor into gear, we are going to get into ways that you can do that naturally from home. Okay, so the first thing that you can do is tons of walking, and in particular, asymmetrical movements of the pelvis. So if you have ever heard of curb walking, that can be a really excellent method to use to help encourage labor to kick into gear. In the same way, you can use exercises on the birth ball in order to encourage asymmetrical movements in your pelvis. And when I say asymmetrical movements, I mean that you're rocking it from side to side and creating inequality on either side of the pelvis. The reason that this is important is because it helps baby turn and navigate the pelvis to engage their head lower down where it needs to be to sit on the cervix and encourage labor to start. So curb walking, circles on the birth ball, not just bouncing, but circles or anything else that encourages your pelvis to be in an asymmetrical position is a good thing to encourage labor to start. The next technique that you can use to encourage labor is going to be a combination of spinning babies techniques. Now, one in particular is called the Miles circuit. And this is something that I plan to do a separate video on at some point, but the Miles circuit essentially uses a combination of movement that can help baby get into the optimal position in your pelvis. It starts with something called a forward-leaning inversion, which you can easily Google and figure out how to do, but you'll essentially rest your elbows on the floor while your knees are on a higher surface like your bed or your couch, and stay there for about 30 seconds or so before lifting yourself back up. That helps baby to get out of the pelvis if they were maybe engaged in some kind of a wonky position, and then settle back down in a way that is optimal. Then you would go into an open knee chest position, and then the third part of the circuit is getting active and moving, like my previous point with asymmetrical movements in the pelvis to help re-engage baby. So if you want to know more about how to do the Miles circuit, you can easily search that up here on YouTube or on Google. And like I said, I plan to make a video about that in the future as well. The next thing that you can do to encourage labor to start is being intimate with your spouse. There are two reasons that this can be really helpful. First of all, this helps to produce oxytocin, or that love and bonding hormone that is so important for our body's overall relaxation and just feeling good at the end of labor, but also to help kickstart labor into gear and throughout the labor process. Oxytocin is crucial. And when you're intimate, you're producing more of this. But I also want to take that a step further and say that not only intimacy, but intimacy with climax is particularly helpful because when a male climaxes, there is actually prostaglandin in his seminal fluid, and that helps ripen the cervix tremendously. And then also the contractions caused by female orgasm could potentially help send you into labor as well. The next thing that you can do from home to naturally induce labor is nipple stimulation. This can be helpful for the same reason that intimacy can be helpful. This can be helpful to induce labor from home for the same reason that intimacy can be helpful, in the sense that it releases oxytocin and can help kickstart contractions. So you can do this in a few ways. The probably most powerful and effective way would be to use a breast pump, and an electric breast pump at that. And that should get your brain producing oxytocin, and you'll probably notice some contractions here or there. You can also just do this with your hands or hand express colostrum, or have it be part of intimacy with your husband. Nipple stimulation is one that can be really effective in kicking your body into labor, especially if you were already close to go time. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is chiropractic care, acupressure, and possibly even acupuncture. So this is a little bit different in the sense that it can't exactly be done on your own from home. You need a chiropractor or somebody to do this for you. Not the acupressure though, you can do acupressure yourself. But in order to have a chiropractic adjustment or acupuncture, you'll need to be seen. But these can actually be really effective methods in helping get your body to kick into labor. And even if it doesn't send you into labor, it can be really helpful in getting your body ready for an easier overall labor. Chiropractic care helps to align your body in a way that your baby can more easily get into an optimal position for birth. Acupressure and acupuncture also help to relax the nervous system in the same way chiropractic care can, all things that can have a domino effect and lead your body into going into labor. There is actually a lot of research out there that states that acupuncture in particular can have a really massive effect in ripening the cervix. And I actually got acupuncture done for the first time in this last pregnancy. I gave birth back in July, and the night before I went into labor, I had acupuncture done, and then I went into labor a few hours after that. So I don't know, that's just anecdotal, but I think that it could work. The next point I want to share with you all are all of the plethora of things that you can consume in your third trimester to help you have an easier or more efficient labor or go into labor sooner. These things in and of themselves aren't actually going to induce your labor, but they can help get your cervix ready. So a couple of those things would be eating dates, lots and lots of dates in your third trimester. There's a lot of actually good research to support that this helps get your cervix ready, as well as pineapple, which has an enzyme in it called bromelain, which can help soften the cervix. You can also take evening primrose oil, either orally or vaginally, and that can also help soften the cervix, though there is some mixed research on that one, and some research studies say that it could increase your risk of hemorrhaging after birth. And then the infamous red raspberry leaf tea, which is different from the other three in the sense that it doesn't soften the cervix, but it's actually a uterotonic. So it strengthens the uterine muscle and can help your contractions be more efficient, effective, and strong when you do go into labor. The last point that I'm going to chat with y'all about in this video is castor oil. Now, this is a pretty well-known method for starting labor, and of all of the above methods, probably the most effective. Castor oil tends to work better in women who've already had a baby before. It doesn't usually work as well at inducing labor in first-time moms. The reason that castor oil works to induce labor is because it is a super strong laxative. So usually if you take some castor oil, it's going to trigger nausea and an intense stomachache with a lot of diarrhea, which if you watched my video on top signs that labor is near, you would know that soft stool or diarrhea indicates that your body is producing prostaglandin, and prostaglandin has an effect on the GI system, but it also has an effect on the uterus and cervix and other human tissue as well. So when you take castor oil and stimulate that GI upset, it can also actually stimulate uterine contractions. This is definitely one that I would urge you to proceed with caution. Now, I'm preaching to the choir here because in my first pregnancy, when I was approaching 42 weeks, I tried castor oil, like not just once, not twice, but probably 3 or 4 times, and it never actually did kick me into labor, sadly. But part of the issue with castor oil is that it can cause such intense GI upset, it can actually make you really dehydrated. And there are some other risks in doing this, such as the fact that it could cause you to have contractions, but contractions that might not actually lead to labor. So you could have all these like irregular, maybe even sometimes uncomfortable contractions might actually just really tire you out and not lead to anything real. It's also just not pleasant to have horrible diarrhea, and it's worth considering if you actually want to go into labor in that state. Okay, and then last but not least, I think I might have said castor oil was last, but this is actually the last. I don't think it's talked about nearly enough, is rest and relaxation. In order for mammals to go into labor, their nervous system actually needs to feel safe enough to produce all of the labor inducing hormones. If you are stressed out or anxious, or even just anxious about when labor will start, that can really inhibit your labor from kicking into gear. So it's kind of a bit of an oxymoron. As much as you can, focus on letting go of the experience that is before you, on relaxing and resting as much as possible, and just slowing down your nervous system, regulating yourself, taking deep breaths, baths, candles, whatever you need to do to make you feel totally relaxed. Do those things in the final weeks leading up to you meeting your baby. If you can relax and let go enough, that might just be the thing you need to kick your body into labor. Alrighty, guys, I hope that this was helpful for you. Continue to hang in there if you're in the final weeks of your pregnancy and feeling really impatient. I know just how hard it can be, but I promise that your patience is going to be well worth it when you meet your sweet baby. If you found this information helpful, go ahead and take the free mini birth class that will be linked in the description below. That 30 or so minutes will help you prepare for a God-centered natural birth and give you a taste of what the Wholly Confident Birth course has to offer. If you are expecting a baby soon, please know of my prayers for you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me this week. I will see you back here next time.